You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Podcast Network. Find all of our shows at wearelibertarians.com. You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Learn more at wearelibertarians.com.
Welcome to the Boss Hog of Liberty podcast. This is episode number 277. Some his favorite podcast. 272. I'm just wishing time away. I'm trying. It was me secretly hoping this election was finally over, Dakota.
Me too.
I'm Jeremiah Morrill. Today we are joined by executive video audio producer engineer Zach Burcham, and making his triumphant return, my forever co-host, Mr. Dakota Davis.
Today's episode is the sheriff's episode in the candidate election series for the general election. Both of these gentlemen are running for the sheriff for Henry County, Indiana. We have John Sproles here running on the Republican ticket, and then Mr. Landon Dean is running as a Democrat. We're excited to have both of them on. We're going to be talking to them about everything to do with the sheriff's department in Henry County, namely their leadership styles, their policing philosophies, their funding and budget constraints that they foresee in the department's future, and I'm sure we're going to get into all kinds of other stuff. So make sure you stick around. It's going to be an information-packed episode.
This show is about our lives in rural Indiana. We're here to push your boundaries and make you think as individuals. Sometimes we'll provoke you, other times we'll make you laugh, but hopefully you'll always learn something new. If you're watching live, I promise that we will keep you updated on the Colts game, because we're watching it right over Landon's shoulder. The poor guy picked the wrong seat, because we're all going to be looking through him to watch the Colts lose to the Broncos tonight.
I'll pay attention to you, Landon.
We just did about 20 minutes on Patreon. That's where the extra bonus coverage is. So if you want to get to know us a little bit better, if you want to be one of the folks that actually makes this show happen and gets it on the air all throughout the year, you can sign on to patreon.com/bosshogofliberty. Contribute any amount per month you'd like. But if you donate $50 or more a month, you get mentioned, name dropped at the top of every episode. We'll promote you. If you're just an awesome person, cool. If you've got a business connection, we're going to help sell that too. So Anthony Meyer, he's been with us for many years. Anthony has been trapped in Morris, Illinois for a week.
He has. Poor Anthony. Still continuing his support, even though he's got thousands of dollars in repair bills for his big rig truck. So that sucks. But we appreciate all of your support, Anthony. Then we have Mr. Jonathan Phillips, our favorite car dealer in the continental United States.
That's all he is to you?
Annie Moore Buick GMC.
He's also a Henry County Sheriff's Reserve, so I know he's tuned in already. I could see that in the chat. John's watching already. And then the incredible, awesome Christy Avery of Fort Wayne, Indiana. I got to see Christy over the weekend. We helped open the new Wall Indianapolis studio at Harry Price's facility, and Christy was out there helping to paint the walls in the new Wall studio. So
beautiful,
awesome person.
We also need to thank Weiland's Flowers, the Slick Pickle, and Big Bounce Inflatables. They are your sponsors for the candidate series before the general election. We want to thank all three of those businesses for all of their support. They have sponsored every single candidate series that we have done on this show. We're super appreciative of them. And, anytime that you hear us mention a sponsor on the show, then you helping them helps us. And we are super, super thankful for them, and we're happy to help them as well, because all three of those businesses are just top notch.
And finally, we do have one network sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Iconic Insurance. 15% of Americans are left to find health insurance on their own. You might be overwhelmed, lost, or frustrated. And if that's you, feel in control of your health with Matt Allen's help. Visit iconic-insurance.com/libertarians to get started. All right, Dakota, that's all the business we have to take care of. The baton is yours.
All right. So we're going to be going back and forth between you guys. First of all, we want to give you guys a chance to tell the voters a little bit about yourself, why you decided to run, what your background is, and all that sort of thing. Landon, why don't we go ahead and start with you?
All of that at once. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm 58 years old.
Don't look a day over 53.
I don't feel like I'm over 40. So, But I have 3 kids, all of them adults now, 4 grandchildren. I'm hoping for more. I still live in Knightstown. I've been at the Henry County Sheriff's Department for 25 years, little more than that. 6 years before that, I was the Shirley Town Marshal. And at the same time, about the last 20 years, I've been working as the Caddis Town Marshal on a very part-time basis.
Do they still allow dueling down around Caddis?
No.
Okay.
No. You never know.
There's laws against that.
There is, yes.
Listen, Caddis, the town marshal's with us, so you do what you want.
And it's a very part-time job, so the county helps out there a lot. I've been on various boards and initiatives around the county. I can be more specific later if we want, or now. In the notes, it said that you wanted to know about why we wanted to be sheriff. Is that what we want to talk about that now? Well, I've known that I wanted to run for the sheriff's office for several years. Like I said, I've been on the department for 25 years. I worked for some amazing sheriffs. The sheriff that hired me was Harold Griffin, and after him was Kim Cronk, and then Butch Baker, and now Rick McCorkle. And I cannot hardly find anything bad to say about those guys and their personalities, but I've had the great advantage to sit and watch the department. And I've always been sitting on the sidelines saying, man, I would do this different. I would do that different. And I've learned a lot from those guys the time I've been there. And sometimes quite loudly, I've learned a few things from a couple of the sheriffs. But I think that's a real advantage, and I respect them all, even though I may not always agreed with them very long. But I made up my mind for sure 8 years ago when Rick won his first time that I was definitely going to run in 8 years, and I've really not hidden that from anybody, and it's just kind of been the plan. I've put myself out there in the public. I've served on these boards. The public's seen me make some mistakes, and they've seen me how I act under pressure, and I think that most of the people are really happy with that. So I'm ready to be sheriff. I think it's if there's such a thing as my turn. You know, I heard Rick McCorkle say, "Hey, it's my turn. I've done everything else at the department. I want to do that," and I kind of think I would like a turn at it. And I have a lot of ideas that I'd like to change some things. A lot of ideas that need to be changed. And I can go into more detail later. I'll give John a chance to talk.
Sure, the conversation will take us there.
Okay.
John, tell us about yourself.
All right, I'm 47 years old, and I am married to the most beautiful woman in the world.
Boy, you're going to cause some other people to get upset. I'm telling you, my wife's in Georgia right now getting pissed.
So we've been married for almost 28 years now, and we have 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls. Graduated from high school in 1993. I know a lot of people think that I graduated cum laude, but I actually only graduated thank the laude. And so I went to work right out of high school because I had already bought my first house before I graduated from high school on Bundy Avenue here in Newcastle, and I had bought a new Mustang 5.0 GT convertible, so I didn't really have the option of going to college. I had to get to work immediately to figure out how to pay for those. But a neat little side note, I still own both of those. And
both the house and the car.
Yes, correct, yes.
How's the car? Zach's a car guy over here.
Yeah,
so what kind of shape's the car in?
Oh, it's immaculate. It's sitting in the garage. I haven't driven it for a long time. Oh yeah, it's as pretty as it was new. It was the last of the Fox body, and it was the Vanilla Ice 5.0.
Yeah.
Red, black top,
shells. Yeah, the whole thing. Yeah.
Oh man. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's great. So I immediately started building houses and churches. Quickly founded Sproles Corporation, which is a multi-state design build church building company. It had always been my passion to be in law enforcement. And when I turned 21, I joined the Henry County Sheriff's Department as a reserve in 1996. I was sworn in as a reserve. In fact, I think, when did you come on, Landon? Because I think I remember in the foyer of the old jail, you come in and I said, are you the new guy from Shirley? Am I remember that right? Did you?
You are. That is correct. Yeah. Yes. Yep.
Do you remember that?
That was the same year.
That's a long time ago. So I made the decision just to join as a reserve because I'd quickly realized the opportunity to expand the building company, and I was making good progress with that. So I just thought it's best to just continue focusing on building the company and just serving as a reserve at the Sheriff's Department. I served for several years as a reserve, and then I felt it's best to go ahead and step away, focus on my church building company. It was a hard decision. I remember I cried. This is almost funny. I cried for days when I gave my badge up. My wife, she thought I was, I mean, she knows I'm crazy now, but that was when she first began, I think, to realize there's something wrong with this guy. But I got over it, and I knew that it was the Lord's will to focus on church building. And so I poured all my efforts and skills into growing our company. We went from being just me and my dad doing all of the work to having many full-time employees over the years. And it's been almost 30 years now that I've owned and operated this company. We have provided jobs for several hundred people, built nearly 100 church projects plus houses. I remember it was all about sales and pushing for sales. And I remember we broke $1 million in sales first time in 2001. And our company budget has ranged from that to over $6 million of annual sales. And we've survived some tough economic times for the building industry, including the Great Recession of 2008. And I like to make this note because it's important. I have not woke up one day in nearly 30 years now without a building project under construction. So I most certainly have experience ups and downs financially with the company. I have fallen on plenty of hard times financially. It's owning a company is not easy. I've never filed bankruptcy personally or corporately. But a building company, it kind of flows with the economy. So, but I'm proud of fighting through the rough times. There have been years that I had to quickly figure out how we're going to shave $700,000 or $1 million out of your budget. And I say this because it's very important in regard to the Sheriff's Department. And looking forward to that, that is not easy. So I have experience in budgets for sure, and having to navigate with in the construction industry, you're up and down, up and down. So let me move to my next page. I have 15 pages of introduction.
we just need the baseline, and we'll fill the gaps in throughout the conversation. You don't have to read it all, man.
So let me wrap it up here for you. A little over 10 years ago, I felt clear that the Lord wanted me to start a Christian school. So I founded Heartland Christian School. We have gone from 0 to over 200 students now, and we've grown every year, and we have a waiting list, and we are in the design phase of building a new high school building. We bought the property just north of the school, and so soon we should be building a new high school building. I want to make something really, really clear because I hear a lot of talk. I try not to watch all of the chatter and the goofiness on Facebook, but something that I do want to point out here. I'm the founder of the school, but I own the building. So I'm the founder and I own the building. I was a school board member for 7 years. I have no financial ties to the school at all. It is a 501c3 organization. I have never received a check from Heartland Christian School to me personally. It has gone the other direction. I have never charged them rent for using my building. So I see all this stuff on all this talk about, Sproles' school. It's not Sproles' school. It's Heartland Christian School. It's its own thing. So I don't own the school. I own the building. So nearly 6 years ago, I joined the Sheriff's Department as a reserve again. And I knew I was right in the center of God's will, and I was so excited. But I quickly realized especially coming out of many years of owning my own business, that the department was severely broken and crippled. And so I'm leading into when I thought about running for sheriff. When I came back I to the department, I just realized the morale was in the tank. People really, I could say, I don't think we're real proud of being here. Everybody's heads are down and they're just pretty much clocking in and putting their time in. And that's when I realized, you know what, we've got to have some change. And I felt like I'm the guy that can bring that. And so about 4 years ago, I decided I plan to run for sheriff. So here we are.
All right.
So, Landon, tell us about I know you've been involved with the town board in Knightstown. I know you've served as the park board president in Henry County for Memorial Park. Mm-hmm. Tell me about how you view leadership and what kind of style of leadership you expect to bring to Henry County Sheriff's Department.
Well, I have learned, even though I haven't been the sheriff, I've had many leadership roles. And the first thing that I like to do is lead from the front. And what I mean from that is I'm not going to ask somebody else to do something that I can't do, or that I'm willing to do. I've kept very busy. It's easy for a seasoned police officer to not participate in patrols and not go on calls and think of every reason not to go on things. But I've been the opposite. Even my biggest critics can say that I'm not lazy by any means. So I've been out there leading from the front, several different things within the department. I've proven my leadership, there. I learn from the mistakes. I try not to live in a fantasy world and say, "Oh, I'm perfect. I'm going to do this right." I've got into some things and some programs or initiatives and say, "Well, we're going the wrong direction," and I take the credit for being going in the wrong direction, and I try to fix things. And it's a big thing to admit when we have this great idea and it just doesn't work out. I've had much more success than I have that, though. There've been a lot of good things. So
when you're talking about the warts, what kind of program would have started to paint the picture for the average person that might not know?
I started, just one example comes to my mind right away, is I was asked to head up our intern program. I don't know if you've seen in the newspaper and stuff. For about 5 years, we get 4 interns from Ball State University. They get assigned to me for a semester. And I say me, they're assigned to me because I'm their instructor. We turn them into reserve officers within a semester. But let me be very clear that I don't do that by myself. Yes, I lead that program, but it takes the entire department and all the deputies helping to make that happen. That's a huge success. I've been named the interns site supervisor for Ball State University, not just here, but through the entire program, several years in a row. And I appreciate it. It's hard work. And another thing that I did, I started 21 years ago. You might have saw that in the paper today. I was surprised to see the story about the Henry County New Start program. And in the late 90s, you may remember we had a lot of fatalities and teenagers getting killed in car accidents. And we wanted to do something. And myself and Trooper Dave Weidinger, we started this program. And it's for first-time offenders, traffic offenders. When a 16, 17, or 18-year-old child gets a ticket, they have to come, or they don't have to anymore, but they get the opportunity to come and take this class, and they listen to us for about 4 hours. And it's basically designed about, if you could see what we see, you wouldn't drive in the manner that got you in this ticket. And there's certain advantages for them. They learn some stuff. We have really good positive results back from that. And it's nothing that I stole a curriculum from or Dave Weidinger stole a curriculum from. It's something that we created and we put together, and we've had a lot of success. And for the last 21 years, it's just amazing to me that it's just gone on that long. And I worry about it next year. I worry about the intern program next year because, if I'm the sheriff, I don't know if I'd have time to do that stuff. I would try to find somebody else to do it. If John's the sheriff, I don't know if he'll let me do that. So we haven't talked about that stuff. So I worry about those things. That's been successful. But that's just a couple examples of the things that I've been able to lead, and it's been very well recepted within the department. Under
your leadership style, what do you like? I'm trying to think of how to ask this, but in the notes you'll see it says, do you believe in assigning people specific tasks? Are you a believer in like decentralized command?
Well,
or what
I think the way I understand that is, am I a micromanager? And absolutely not. I hate being micromanaged, and I don't want to micromanage. There's times when people are new in their new career, you have to keep a very close eye on everything they do. But I think that your employees do better when you let them do the things, as long as they're within the parameters of being legal and the protocol, do things the way they want to at the pace that they want to do them. And you allow them to shine and take credit for things that they do good. You always recognize that they're doing well. And I try to be out there with them and provide constructive criticism. And, I think it's real important for a leader to know what's going on first and to trust their folks to take what you've taught them and use it.
Do you think the expectation is for an elected sheriff to be out in the field? It sounds like that's what you would intend to do.
I
not
absolutely.
be administrative, but still be be running the roads, etc.
After I win, if I win, I think that I will be out on the road, and I'll probably put more miles on the car than any sheriff has since Vaughn Reed Jr. And I will be responding to a lot of calls. I'll be responding to the folks and to crashes and to help the guys. And I will not ever let our guys feel like they don't have any help, because I'm almost having my phone on and radio on 24 hours a day, but I will not be the kind of sheriff that goes home and shuts my radio off and shuts my phone off and relies on everybody else to go help. If I hear something or if somebody needs help, I'm going to go. There'll be an empty chair in that sheriff's office a lot more than there ever has. And I'm not trying to criticize anybody from the past, because we all have, that's why you asked, as we have our different leadership styles. I will be out there. And that's why I've picked a really strong, motivated, non-procrastinating person to be second in command and to help me so that I can go out there and work. Cause I'm not really a desk person. And I hope that doesn't hurt me in some voters' eyes that I'm not a desk person. I realize I'm going to have to spend time in the office and I'm going to have to make those decisions. And especially in the beginning, there's a lot of things to change. I'll change most things 180 degrees come January 1st. And so there will be some time that I'll be tied to that office, but I will not ever let one of our deputies out on working the road feel like they don't have any help.
All right. John, let's have that conversation with you as well. And I want this. I don't want this to have to all feel rehearsed. I want it to be a natural, free flowing conversation. What's your leadership style? How do you, as Dakota put it, micromanaging, and if you intend to be out in the field yourself, or if you think it's more of an administrative job?
Well, I think it's very clear listening to him talk about being in the field a lot and putting more miles on, been out with the guys seemingly on a regular basis. It's very clear that he has never managed a company with many, many employees. There comes a point to where when you have, and the sheriff's department has, including the reserves and including part-time, the sheriff's department has over 100 employees. There are 70 full-time paid positions, 15 part-time, and so that's 85. And then you say you run 25 on the reserves, that put it at 110. So I love the thought, and I would believe that I would be out there with my guys when they needed it. I'm not going to be out running radar for sure, because there's just no way to effectively run an operation of this size, with a budget of $5 to $6 million in total, with all of the different budgets that we have. There can't be an empty chair in the office for very long, or that'll lead to chaos. Something that talking about not leaving. I wouldn't leave. I would want my phone on as well. I would have it on. I wouldn't leave anybody out, and feeling like they don't have help. I believe that the sheriff needs to be there for serious calls. I believe that the sheriff needs to be there when the guys are working fatal car crashes, the sheriff and or the major. I believe when we're dealing with suicides, and we deal with a lot of those, that the sheriff needs to be there to deal with the families. The officers have enough to deal with working with the scene. And it's difficult because most of the time you have multiple family members there that are dealing with the trauma. And that is something that I feel like that naturally I do well at. When I show up at those type of scenes, I'm the one that the guys say, Sproles, you go deal with the family. And so I most certainly would be involved in those critical calls. And obviously we don't have those every day. But I think we're missing the understanding of the magnitude of this job. And yes, it is primarily an administrative job. What is required to be a sheriff, it is interesting to point out, and I think some people don't even know this, but you do not have to have any police experience at all to be a sheriff. And those laws are sent down from the all-knowing lawmakers at the state. And there's a reason for that. It is mainly an administrative job. And, it's not you're out arresting people or performing the certified breath test machine.
So you've got a payroll that includes 100 people or 80 some people.
Right.
What's the budget of the Henry County Sheriff's Department? Because you've got a jail, like you said, you have a jail you're running. You've got head counts.
So there are several different budgets that we operate off of. The Sheriff's Department budget, the sheriff budget, which has our salaries and those type of things that deal specifically with basically the road division, is about $2 million. Then you've got the jail budget that is a couple million. It winds up to be in the $5 to $6 million total range that you are directly in charge of. So for the voters that are watching, essentially you're picking somebody that's going to spend $20 million on your behalf over the next 4 years. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I would look at more than at 40 million for the next 8.
Well, we haven't not reelected a sheriff in quite some time.
So let me if I can comment about that, that is important. And like I said, there is going to have to be times that every day I'm going to have to spend discipline myself and be in the office and take care of those things. But also what I said earlier about not being a micromanager, we have excellent people that have handled those budgets and handled those numbers. And I just pray to God that they stay and help, or at least help train new people to do that, because the sheriff, at least the sheriffs we've had before, have never done that all themselves. They get help. And that's what I'll do, is I'll get help and hopefully retain the people that have handled those budgets for several years now. And again, I don't really want to point fingers at John, but he pointed a finger at me when he said, about that chair couldn't be empty and that I hadn't ran that company. I hadn't ran a big company like that. Well, he's right. I haven't ran a company with 100 people in it, but I have had a lot of responsibility with a lot of different budgets. I think it's interesting because he said that he has the company with 100 people with a big budget. It takes somebody to run it. He talks about the sheriff's department. It's a big budget. He's going to have to be there to run it. But yet he's willing to do both. There's going to have to be an empty chair somewhere at the company and at the sheriff's department, because I don't think he has any indication. And for the folks that need churches, I hope he doesn't have any indication of getting out of the church building business. So he has to rely on other people to help him facilitate those budgets and facilitate those decisions. And yeah, you've got to be in charge of it and take responsibility for it. But the weight of that is not completely on your shoulders.
So what you rely on other people to do is to do the manual labor. Owners of companies, they pay attention to budgets and they pay attention to the overall operation. And you can't get down into the weeds of being out frame, in a building aspect, out swinging a hammer, framing walls. You've got to be making sure that the materials are lined up and ordered and so, again, it's mostly an administrative position. I want to say something that just popped in my mind. You said you never turn your phone off. I haven't been able to get a hold of you for years, since I think since the time you got into some trouble when I went and I talked to the sheriff about some ways that you had been treating people, and then you called me and said that I got you fired, and how did I feel about myself? But I'm thinking that you've turned your phone off on me. Am I off? Am I blocked?
Well, that's another problem when you assume things and exaggerate things.
No, I just
number one, I didn't get fired, so I don't guess you got me fired.
Right, exactly right. But you told me you did. I think my number's blocked on your phone. Is that accurate?
That is not true.
Why does it never ring in? It may not be. Why does it never ring?
Well, let's get back to the.
I think we're going to have to call AT&T or Cricket or something.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure that I'm blocked, and
Call it. Let's see if it lights up.
I'm calling it.
All right. Well, John's calling Landon. Let's just put the one at the end of it.
Or is no longer in service.
What number did you dial?
Oh, I'll tell you.
Don't give Landon's phone number over Facebook.
I don't care.
Oh, we have a lot of candidates that give their cell phone numbers out. It's always fun.
Well, I can assure you I've never blocked John Sproles.
Well, here we go again.
All right.
Your call has been forwarded to an automated.
It's blocked because
it's on silent for here.
Negative. It's blocked.
All right. Let's talk about policing philosophy,
Well,
John.
hold on. I want to go back to the leadership style because, John, whenever we did the primary episode, you were the odd guy out on that on the decentralized command question that I asked Landon earlier.
Don't go unblocking it, Landon.
I'm not dishonest like you. I wouldn't do that. So
Yeah. It's been blocked for a long time, and we're talking about leadership styles. And I want to make a point here. That is dangerous. It's shocking. In fact, I assume that's a department phone. And when you block another deputy's phone number, to where if let's say they're having a school shooting in Knightstown, and Landon's don't have his police radio on, I can't call him. That could be a life and death situation. So when you talk about leadership styles, that's an important. When you're just going to get so mad at somebody, you're just going to block their phone number.
That's just not true, John, and that's the problem. And you assume things.
Okay, well let's.
Do we really want a sheriff in the office that assumes this stuff that you're saying now? Because it's a lie. You're just out and out lying about that.
Did you give me?
Call has been forwarded.
Okay, so watch.
I don't know what's wrong with you. I wouldn't know how to block somebody if I wanted to.
Now let me block my phone number and call you. So just give me a second here.
Well, I'm sure you've worked this out ahead because I guarantee you,
automated voice
I can't get you.
You can get anybody you want. I won't touch my phone. You look at it. You have not been blocked. I have received phone calls from you.
Watch your phone. Get ready to ring. 5450.
This just seems like another orchestrated event by you to make me look bad, and you have to make up things.
Your phone's ringing, Landon.
You have to make up things.
Your phone's ringing. It says block. See that?
It says no caller ID.
That's correct. That's me calling because you have my phone number.
I'm sure that you orchestrated that somehow to make a big point. That's the way you do things. You make things happen to your benefit.
Hey, Landon, my phone number's blocked, okay?
It's not. You're lying again. You've done something. I guarantee you anybody can look at this phone. It is not locked.
All right. Let's talk about
Landon,
the issues of the race here, okay?
Sorry.
This is a big
Henry
issue.
County has some, what I would sense has been somewhat of an increase in crime over the last couple of years. We talked about that in the show leading up to the May issue. 2 neighboring communities have had officers that have died in this calendar year with violence. So I want to start with John and talk about the increase in violence that we've seen and what influence the sheriff's department has.
Well, obviously, the sheriff's department has a lot of influence on crime, and I think in the notes you talked about when crime starts to cluster. What do we do? The first thing we've got to communicate. It's one thing that we do not do well. Maybe I should rephrase that. That's one thing that we don't do at all. Our communication is terrible, and so we've got to communicate. We've got to communicate to our people. When we have crime that is happening in certain areas, when we have, let's say, a rash of break-ins, we need to communicate to the people.
Pull your mic in just a little bit.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I keep getting away from it. We need to communicate to the people, hey, we've been having a rash of break-ins in the southern part of the county. We need to then move resources down there to deal with that. So the sheriff's department has the ability most certainly to put a damper on crime. And so that is obviously we're going to do that by manpower, which brings up a huge problem. We are short in manpower, and I think that may have be a question in the notes later on. But while we're on the subject, we run with 2 deputies for 440-ish square miles to cover. It's phenomenal. And so we can't do a whole lot with, we can barely stay up on just taking care of calls. So to focus on, clustering crime, we don't have the resources. And I believe, unfortunately, I think I'm the first one to go public, but I put a video out not too long ago about we've got to have more manpower.
So help me understand this, because I'm a layman. I've done like 2 ride-alongs in my life. Henry County might have 2 sheriff's deputies on the road, and then I assume you have mutual aid. So if you city of Newcastle, other counties, maybe state police, there are others that can help.
Correct. In extreme situations, we don't have mutual aid to work burglary patrol in Louisville from Newcastle, and the state. We have a great working relationship. And so, sometimes they'll have 2 or 3 officers in our county, and they help out with many things.
But with property crime, we're wildly naked. Is what the point
exactly. Yes, correct. Okay. Absolutely.
I just want to point out that the normal, what we're supposed to have is 4. I agree that's not enough. We're supposed to have 4 people on duty all the time, but when you have somebody sick or vacation, that cuts it down to 3. We absolutely don't like for it to be under 3. And during the day, we have a road captain, Captain Kovacs, that helps out with calls. But at nighttime, that does cause a problem. So that's something that John and I agree about. We need more, but how do you get more? We've really struggled with getting pay raises to keep the guys that we have. And I understand John's view, but since he's came on the department, we have gone through the jail problem, the jail overcrowding. We have had several years of COVID. This department hasn't acted and responded to things normally for several years because of the changes. We have the new jail now. The COVID seems like it's lightening up, and we're hiring other people. I think John talks about business, every agency finds themselves at a point where they're short of people, and you have to figure out why. You have to try to fix it and hire some more people, and we're doing that.
Landon, do you think that there is a role, and I'll ask you the same thing in a second, John, there is a role that the sheriff's department plays in as far as socially to get crime down?
Absolutely. And we've already work. There's no sense in reinventing the wheel. We did this in the 90s. You remember the crime surge in the 90s, and we had the cops grant. They put 50,000 cops on the road, and it was proven crime dropped all over the country. And not only did we put more cops on the road, we did community policing, and we put the police officers out there. I remember being assigned to a community. I had Greensboro and Kennard, and I would go to their town board meetings. I would make special patrols in there. I would meet the people. And some of the newer folks thinks that they're beyond talking to people, and will probably be upset that if I win, because they'll be assigned to communities again, and they'll be aware of what's going on there with social media. My plan is to have a social media press release of some sort on Facebook or wherever every Monday morning and tell the people what's happened. So because we've had a severe lack of communication with the public, and we need to fix that. I think that the regular press conferences, the Facebook posts, or the social media posts of some type, at least once a week. And then when something happens, I get upset because we don't do press releases when something happens. Like John was talking, there's a serious accident or something. The people need to know that. So
we Boss Hog, we get them, but they come from the state police, right? So if something happens, the Indiana State Police usually are the ones that tell us.
Well, the 911 director has recreated, and it's just started, and it's not widely known yet, something that he did when he was sheriff. It was Butch. When Butch was sheriff, every morning at a certain time, there was every call that was taken from the sheriff's department. It was sent to the media outlet. Now, that was before social media, but every morning at 7 o'clock, they'd get a list of all the calls that weren't sensitive in nature. If it was under investigation or a juvenile, they couldn't do it. But, and just a little brief description of what happened. We are just now getting that started back. I don't know what happened to it, or it was a technical problem, but, Brian True, who is our IT guy, he has, got that thing going again, and it's going to start going every morning. So
I'm sorry to rewind, but, it seems like you kind of mentioned something that, seems like it should be expanded upon, but correct me if I'm wrong. If you think that that you want to assign deputies to like areas and townships or something again.
Yes, and it doesn't mean that they stay there, but if something comes up in Kennard, I would be able to call the deputy that is assigned to Kennard and say, hey, can you go talk to these people? There's some problems. Can you work it out? They get to know them on a first name basis. Then Sheriff Kronk bought us bicycles. And I remember having a bicycle on the back of my patrol car, and I would go out and ride around Kennard and Louisville. And it got us out into the community. And right now there's no initiative. Partly because of COVID, because nobody wanted to talk to anybody, but there's no initiative to get the guys out there in the communities, and I can't see the budget in the county hiring any more that's already allotted. Yeah, we need to replace what we don't have so that we have those 3 and 4 man shifts and some tax shifts. Another thing is we're very stuck on a cycle for a schedule. We need to be creative with this schedule, because right now you have 2 days on, 2 days off. People come on at 5 in the morning, go off at 5 in the evening. It's just a cycle. You could still get those 12-hour shifts or 8-hour shifts, what do the guys want to work, but they don't necessarily have to be all unison and everybody coming at the same time. We should stagger those, be more creative with the schedule, basically, to allow people to get out and talk to the community and be seen, because it's much needed here.
So this deputy to community relationship you're proposing, would that be for all communities in the county? So like the town, like Knightstown, Middletown, where they have their own departments, or even Moreland.
Well, and the thing about the towns that have their own police department, they're a bigger town, and they need help as much as anybody else. Those departments help us. You were talking about mutual aid earlier. If we need help, they help us. We go help them, and it's even more important to communicate with those departments, because sometimes they feel excluded and secluded, and they shouldn't, because they're within the county bounds. And you know, if there's an active shooter or a bad accident, we don't draw the lines. Thank goodness I don't know of any of the community's power structures that draw lines and say you can't go across this line. They go if they need help. So,
all right,
John, same questions.
Talking about communication, that's obviously one thing that I have been very vocal about, and my plan is, as far as communicating with the community, I like to just speak directly to the people through Facebook, make videos. I like, and I intend, and I have actually promised a campaign promise that we would have quarterly forums. Open forums to where the community would come to the sheriff's department.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You're not going to start getting us made fun of by taking pictures of little tiny piles of evidence and putting a picture and all the police officers in front of it and have all the everybody make fun of the community, are you?
A press release.
A press release over
a dime bag.
$37 worth of marijuana that was claimed off Highway 103.
Yes, no.
It's Delta 8, John.
Yes, no. But I
don't want to have to answer for that, because I know some of our audience is pretty rough, and they're going to blame me.
Yeah.
I'm responsible for Henry County.
Yes, no. We've got to communicate with our citizens, with our community. It's very important. And I believe that we, in communicating to our community, that's going to be a way that Landon talked about. We need to hire more people. We're probably not going to. We're probably not going to if nobody fights for it. I don't doubt that. But I intend to be very direct with the voters and say, this is what we need. Spell it out. Put it on a PowerPoint. This is what we need. This is why we need it. And I believe our voters are smart enough to get behind the message when we can show that, look, we've got to have 2 more officers. Right now, in my opinion, we need 2 more officers than we currently have budgeted slots for. And So that we have got to push for that. We've got to fight for it. And I believe that the voters are smart enough to get behind it. And if the voters get behind it, if you go directly to the voters, the council better get behind it, or they'll be moving on down the road when the next election comes up.
All right. That's how the conversation works, right? The sheriff has the opportunity to have the platform to speak for something. And then ultimately, the county council is the one that funds it.
Right. That's correct.
Or says, well, Mr. Sheriff, go find a grant and get it paid for.
Yeah, correct.
So the same question with you, as far as community involvement goes, do you think that the sheriff's department has a role in reducing crime through social action?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's our job to reduce crime. That we are here to protect. That would mean reduce crime. And we're here to serve. So being engaged with the community and community policing, I know we've heard that, but the people want to know what's going on. They want to be engaged and absolutely connecting. I'm a PR person, so wondering if I'm going to be out with the community and engaging with people. I don't think too many people that know me very well are going to think, hey, I wonder if Sproles is going to get out there. No, I'm going to be out there with the people. And that's a passion of mine. I love it. And so, yeah, I'm going to be engaged with our communities. Now, assigning officers to communities and assigning officers to zones, that is something that
I think this came up in the primary conversation as well.
Yes, yeah. There are a lot of there's some pros to that, but there's a lot of cons. And one of those, the biggest one, in my opinion, is the officers don't want to do that. You don't want to say, look, you're going to go you're going to patrol just the corner of the county up in the Buntsville area, and don't come out of there unless there's, they need backup all the way in Knightstown, which can happen, and that's a problem. So we've got to look at what is
it
reasonable.
that, or is it just to say, hey, I want you to show up at the town festival in Dunreath, or when there's a Highway 40 sale, or just find a way to make yourself visible in that community to get to know people.
Right. Well, I think that the officers will follow the lead of the leader. And I don't think that I would have to tell people, now, you better go down there. They're having you better go down there. They're going to probably show up because I'm probably going to be down there. And so a lot of things you don't have to just demand, you're going to do this and you're going to do this. You lead by example. And when you're a department that is engaged with the community, your officers will pick up on that, and they'll start doing that, or else they'll start feeling like, yeah, I maybe need to do this some more because I know he's really into that. So you lead by example in those areas.
All right. So last question here in the policing philosophy section is the county has many different task forces in the sheriff's department. I want to get your guys' thoughts on the task forces broadly speaking. And then also if there is a task force that you think needs to be beefed up more, if you think there's one that needs to be whittled down, or if you would like to add one, then I'd like to hear about that as well. Why don't you go ahead and start us off, Landon?
Well, we currently have the drug task force that is in dire need of people right now, again, because of the manpower. But if you look at the history of our drug task force, in combination with Newcastle, this community does well when the sheriff's department works with the city police departments and the town police departments. But our area drug task force has done an amazing job over the last few years and gotten a lot of drugs off the roadway. I brag about them all the time. I'm not involved with them, but I see what they do, and I know when I call them, they respond and they do a good time. So of course I would support that. And if they have any problems that I may not be aware of, I would like to get that fixed. And I just hope that the city and the county can keep working together because it's worked out so well in the past. We have a PACE team, which is a proactive drug enforcement system out on the interstate. I know that they've got some criticism lately, but they have taken a massive amount, that's not marijuana, massive amounts of
listen, I've heard of some tourists passing through from the West Coast to the East Coast that had the mistake of stopping in Henry County.
I'm talking about large amounts of drugs that's being trafficked across the United States. They've done some amazing things. And the reason they're so successful is they have the knowledge and the intelligence, and they have the resources, and they have the time. Those guys are assigned to that all the time, and that's what they do. And
that program is multiple communities, so it's Hancock County, Henry County, and
right now it's just 2. When it started out, it was Greenfield, Hancock County, Henry County, Newcastle. We even had a spot for a while, or should have, and then Wayne County and Richmond. So I don't know about I know the funding has changed on that, but we have been able to keep our officer assigned out there, and he's been very active. And anytime you give somebody a focus and give them time to take care of that focus, they do well. And I would like to see that happen in the city. A focus, an officer, if it's not that officer, another officer that is assigned in the city or in the county, not just the interstate, on a certain issue, and focus on certain things and leave them alone, not make them take regular calls, so they can gather the intelligence needed. They can talk to the folks and get things done.
Is there anything task force wise that can be done with highway safety, particularly with road construction? I know we've had I-70 has been we've had some fatal accidents just in the last
for 25 years. I've been begging for a special traffic enforcement division, and I know that would take some grant money because there's not the money in the county government to say we have a traffic officer. But if I could find some grant money to put a guy on the road and all he does is traffic, like similar to what Indianapolis may have a traffic unit, and in those construction zones assign him and have him spend time there, because we do have a lot of fatalities. We do have a lot of accidents. We have a lot of aggressive drivers. I can't believe the amount of road rage lately. The road rage is just out of control. And, as John says, you've got 2 officers running from one end of the county to the other taking calls. You don't have time to enforce that, and we need that because it's life-saving. So
I watched a box truck driver lose his mind this morning on 103 as they were paving it in front of Jack's Donuts. The guy, I watched him go through all of the phases of a temper tantrum sitting next to me as traffic wasn't moving.
But before I can't speak anymore, I would like you ask about other things. And I've thought about some kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, task force or how you want to word it, but we have a huge problem with mental patients and people that have taken so many drugs in this county that they'll never be right again. We need to figure out some way with the mental health experts in the county to work with them and try to do something, because I don't know what the answer is, but I need to be educated and I need to find out. I need to do research. But we have an ever growing amount of the public that's walking around that is they've just have no ability to think anymore, and they can't even stay at shelters because they don't follow the rules at the shelters. We need to think about that, and proactive enforcement to stop it from getting there. But what about the people that are already there? And the other thing is the PTSD. We have a lot of PTSD problems. We need massive amounts of training on that, and we need a program to focus on what to do with the PTSD folks. So, and a crash investigation team. We really we don't do everything that we could do on some investigations. We call the state police in to cover for us and to do some of the needed investigations. We always had a traffic investigation team that we could call in and find out the cause and do everything that needs to be done. I'd like to bring
the
that
reason
back.
we don't have that is that because of attrition or funding, or what's the
lack of interest and
lack of interest in you don't have a guy that raises their hand and says, "Hey,
we don't have a lack of the leadership." I think the last one we had is when Butch was sheriff. Now I may be wrong; I haven't researched that, but we used to have when a bad accident happened, a certain number of people would come out. Well, we had a guy that was trained in reconstruction, and he quit and he left, so we never replaced him. So I think if we would take officers that we have. We wouldn't take more officers, train them in reconstruction, train them in how to interview people, just have a plan and a focus on these things. When there's a fatality or a serious accident, that we send this team out and, focus on that kind of thing. So, when I saw the question earlier, those things popped in my mind that yes, I would like to have those endeavors put in place that we used to have or create some new ones for the ones that we haven't had.
I think your mental health initiative is a pretty good idea. Recent events in the past few years has brought into light, hey, we're expecting our police forces to deal with a lot of mental health problems with the public, but we're not training them to do that. So, yeah, I think working with local mental health services would probably be a good idea for our sheriff's department. John, same questions for you, man.
So back to the task force issues. I want to bring Landon up on some current events. He said that the drug task force team, that we've been working together well with the city, and we're at a complete gridlock right now. To say that we're working together at all may be an overstatement. We have got to we've got to bridge this. We have got a major problem in not being able to work well with the city. And I, quite frankly, I would put that in our administration's lap.
What do you think the cause of that is?
Well, I referred to it in a video a while back. I think that a big cause is I've been a cop for 40 years. And you ain't gonna tell me what to do. I've done drugs. I've worked all that stuff, and there's no, hey, what can we do to work together here? These are joint task force. The drug task force, it's a joint task force. There are X amount of officers from the city, X amount of officers from the county, and an equal number. And we have just not been able to work together well, for sure. But we are just, that's in shambles. So that is currently in shambles, and it's going to take a leader who the city wants to work with, and who the city feels comfortable to work with, to the city leaders. And I think that I am the guy for that. I've had a good working relationship with Matt, the city chief, and Justin, the assistant chief. And so another thing, Landon said that the PACE team has just been very proactive and doing a good job. I've got some bad news on this. I think if you will look and see how many arrests our PACE team officer has had in the last couple of years, do you know how many that is?
So, John, if you're asking me a question, so
right.
I'll answer.
I don't mean
again. This is why 25 years makes a difference than 3.
Okay.
Your perspective is so skewed on that. You're judging with the things that's happened in the country, the things that's happened with our staffing, the things that's happened. You're judging everything on the last 3 years. And I'm talking about overall. And I even mentioned in the past.
I said the last 2.
The past, they have taken large amounts of drugs off the roadway.
I understand that.
The drug task force has arrested many people here. And to say that they don't, maybe you're right. I know about that. But there's a thing about a leader not dirtying all the, you can be transparent without calling people names.
Yeah.
Currently it's in a bad shape, but that doesn't mean that it hasn't been. It's worked out very well.
So I want to talk about transparency, and I'm being transparent when I'm talking about our PACE team. There has been, I think, from our officer, 2 arrests in the last 5 years. And let me say,
I think that's wrong. I think you're exaggerating.
Well, you can look it up.
2 arrests in 5 years. You're going to stick with that statement?
I said 2 years.
Oh, I thought you said 5. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I stand corrected if that's wrong. But the last time that I checked, I think it was somewhere in that range. And another thing that I want to say about the PACE team, I don't know that we have thought this thing through very well yet or not. When we've got one of our guys on the interstate, you're looking for the big loads that are going cross country. I mean, you're talking about cartel stuff. We're arresting cartel members sometimes, bringing them to our local jail, putting them in a cell with our local wannabe big-time dope dealers, giving them plenty of time to build friendships and connections. That way, when they head their separate ways, man, our little dude here in town's like, dude, let me tell you something. I got a big hookup. We've got to think these things through.
You're saying that our county jail turns into a networking session?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And so I think we've got to be careful. One thing that I will say this, if I am elected, we're going to pause the PACE team immediately until we can work through and make sure it's profitable for our county. I only care about our people, and I don't want to say that wrong. I care about everybody, but I would just be tasked if I am the next sheriff. I have got to focus on our Henry County people.
So the PACE team, and I don't want to make it personal because I know that there's probably an officer or two that are employed by this, and I don't know them, but I'm guessing that there's a line item that comes from a program that pays for that. So if you say I'm not taking that program, then that officer has to be funded a different way.
There was many years ago. That's been gone for a long time. We're paying the salary for that officer. He's our officer.
Does the PACE team officer, is he one of the two that we have?
He is one of the two, yes. And he's our officer. Okay. So when we are slammed, I'll tell you this, when we're slammed.
So Henry County Sheriff's Department's paying for it, but you're putting that person on I-70.
And it's very difficult for our officers when we're slammed, running call to call. We've got two guys out here and we've got an officer just sitting on the interstate. He's there or not there. I don't know. We don't know. And so we've got to focus on taking care of our people. We only have so many resources. We talk about we want to get a crash investigation team. We can't even put an adequate road coverage team together for one shift, hardly. So that's great. It sounds good, but we can't.
Are you against having a SWAT team too? Because that takes resources.
No, I'm not against having a SWAT team. We currently have that. And we've had that for many, many years.
Yes.
Yeah. So we understand the resources that we have to work with right now. We're working with those. But to add another team, another thing, we cannot compete. The state police are wonderful. We work together wonderfully well with them. They bring in the most high-tech equipment. They bring in drones. They have teams that focus on that. We have got to narrow our focus.
They've got the fanciest MRAPs in all the states.
They do. So we have to focus on, we've got to take care of our people first before we get spread out into special teams. That all sounds good, but we've got to.
So what about the construction zone safety question? Because that's my day job is in road construction. Right. Well, and I know it's sometimes I'm the guy on the other side of the orange barrels.
To my knowledge, and I've never worked these details. But the construction companies, they have officers that they pay like $50 an hour, which is wonderful.
They'll have a line item for additional LEOs, but then the locals can do something as well.
Yes. Well, we don't have the manpower to do that, and they're paying our people. And again, it's wonderful because I hear our guys saying they're making $50 an hour. That's
right.
Awesome.
Someone will volunteer in the sheriff's department if
they have sign up sheets, and that's a great thing. And our guys love to do it because it's extra money for them. And so they're covering that, and really they need to cover that. They shouldn't put the burden on us when the state's paying multi-gazillions of dollars to redo State Road 3. Right. Well, you need to bring your own security with it. We can't.
Right. Well,
I mean, they are already hiring like Wright and whoever, and they can just add that on.
The biggest artery,
exactly.
The biggest artery in our community is State Road 3, and from I-70 to essentially, I don't know, Walmart area is going to be entirely under barrels next year. So you're going to have some severe construction and issues. Zach just panicked. It's coming. That's why I can see the future here a little bit. So I wanted to try to have this conversation about, because there are going to be more significant accidents. There's going to be road rage. There's going to be issues.
What are your thoughts, real quick, John, about Landon's position with mental health training for our sheriff's department?
It is definitely one of the most taxing things that we're dealing with right now. We are running emergency detention, so that is when somebody is deemed a harm to themselves, and a judge gets involved and signs an order to put them in a facility for 72 hours. They become they are in our possession at that time.
I heard Elkhart County goes 10 days.
I heard that too.
Yeah. Well, so we have to transport these people usually to Indianapolis. Anderson is our short run. Options in Indianapolis is about an hour. Then we'll go out to Greenwood. We go up to Crown Point, and we are running these transports constantly.
Is that where you use a reserve? For that kind of,
it's where we would like to use a reserve, but it's been very difficult to get reserves to cover those. I'm not allowed access on the reserve schedule for whatever reason. It may be the same reason I'm blocked on the telephone, but I have no access, so I can't.
That's a today issue, but
Yes,
I assume the sheriff knows what's going on with the reserves.
I don't know.
I've got a head nod from Landon on that.
Well, we don't. So I'll say that the sheriff,
road deputies.
yes,
don't
correct.
know
If the sheriff knows what's going on with these reserves, good. But as far as on the road working, we have no idea.
Okay. All right. I want to take a second to thank our sponsor once again for helping us out.
I don't get to respond to that.
You will. I just got to get this read and
All
we'll
right.
come right back. Weiland's Flowers, the Slick Pickle, and Big Bounce have been incredible to Boss Hog, and we want to make sure we give them all the love we can. Okay, everybody took a breath. You go, Landon.
All right. So John just said some things about the reserves. We have an amazing reserve program, but it's awfully good. We keep losing people to full-time positions. And when we get a new reserve, it's usually somebody that doesn't have a lot of training, and it takes a lot of time to get somebody on the road. And unfortunately, right now, we're about 10 down. We're allowed 25, and we're down to just below 15. So we're rebuilding that.
So pitch that. If somebody's watching and says, you know what, I'd like to be a reserve, what do they need to do?
They need to first fill out an application. We'll do a background check on them. And if they pass, they come in for an interview and go through the process. If they get selected, they have to go through a state mandated 40-hour pre-basic class, which is about 50 hours, really, and then go through an FTO program. So it takes a while to get them done. Field training officer. They have to be assigned with somebody. They can't just jump in the car after 40 hours and go out and work. So it's nice when we get a retired officer or somebody from another community that's already done it. But and just when I talk, maybe I didn't make myself clear. John's talking about what happens after the person makes it to the hospital and that we have to transport. And yes, there's, the reserves do get picked on a lot. If they're out working, they're the ones that get picked to take that call clear across the state. And, but I was talking about before they get picked up and taken to the hospital, a task force to get out and, communicate with these people and see why they're doing what they're doing. And again, I don't know how that looks, but I think that we need to get some cooperation with the mental health folks before the fact, before they make it to the hospital.
Like just having someone who works in mental health in the county, like having them come in and just talk to you guys, put on a training or something.
Yeah, because it's a different way to respond to people. It's back before we had autism training, we didn't know how to respond to an autistic child. Now we do, and it's very successful. And I just think that we need some more training, some more maneuvers, some more techniques to deal with people with PTSD. And because you deal with them differently, and people with mental problems, than you do other folks.
So we've been dealing with this headcount issue, and one of the Facebook Live questions came in from a guy named Paul Morrill. He says who's the president of the Rush County Merit Board, and my dad. The Indiana Law Enforcement Academy entrance physical test says it's the same for a man as a woman. Do you agree that men and women are physically different, so you would advocate for physical standards being different from a man or a woman as they go through the academy? We'll start with Landon on that.
I'll tell you what, that is a misbelief. There are more women out there that do this job 10 times better than a lot of the men in the job, and physically, mentally, and they do it more calmly. They learn quicker, and the standards as far as the entrance standards, like the push-ups and sit-ups. Is that what he's talking about?
I assume the physical, yeah,
the physical things. I don't see why there should be any difference in that, because I don't know of a case where
what is it?
25 push-ups, 25 sit-ups, 1.5 miles in 16 minutes. 300, what is it, 300 meter?
I don't. Yeah, 1638 on the 1.5 miles. That's the exit requirement.
This isn't Navy SEAL training we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, I think the way to answer that question is very, very simple. Does the situation that we're getting called to, which we don't know what it is, it might be a shooting, God forbid, in one of our schools. Does that adjust if a female officer's coming? Oh wait, female officer's coming. We can only shoot. No. So absolutely not. I mean, this job has certain requirements, and those we've got to be in certain physical shape. I mean, the situations are not dictated by whether there's a woman law officer showing up or a man. You've got a situation, you've got X amount of people fighting. They don't care whether a woman's coming or not. So absolutely not.
Yeah.
We've got
both
to maintain.
Kind of agree on that
yes.
one.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about the relationship that you would have with council, with the county council when it comes to budget, and how do you advocate for changes that you're trying to make financially, Landon?
And I know John will strongly disagree with me, but I think running a business, I ran a small business, nothing like what he did, and it wasn't near as successful as what his was. But I did run a business, and I think it's completely different than the way government works, because government's frustrating. The first thing I learned when I started getting on the boards was everything's so slow, and there's so many steps to go through, and there's so many things to make the state board of accounts healthy, and each office has its own responsibilities, and you just can't go in and demand things and scream for things. You got to be able to work with them. And my experience with the park board and the food and beverage board is that I was able to communicate with them well. I was able to be realistic with them. I wasn't able to be, hey, it's my way or the highway. It was all about compromise. And we made lots of progresses. And every one of the council members and the commissioners I've worked very well with, and I haven't agreed with them all the time. I'm sure you've seen that, but I respect all of them. And I think that I could work with them really well. And sitting on the Knightstown Town Council, it's a big challenge sitting on the other side of the bench and hearing people come in and demand things and say it's going to be this way or the highway. And government just doesn't work that way. Would it be nice if we could fix all of government and say, yes, it would be easier. Yes, you should, fall for the demands of whoever's the loudest in the room or whoever thinks they're the smartest. But it's just not that way. There's safety nets and things so that the loud demanding person doesn't just get their way and everybody else have to go along with what the loud demanding person wants. So.
All right. How do you plan on working the politics of getting your office funded, John?
Right. So, Memorial Park Board and the needs for more patrol officers, I don't know about Memorial Park Board, but, there's no need to yell and scream and demand that we need to plant 3 more trees. But
we have plenty to yell about over there, John. Yeah. I've done my tour there too.
But here's the thing. When it comes to our officers' well-being, and the well-being of our community, there does come a time where you have to get serious and say, hey, look, our guys are overworked. They're stressed out. They can't take a vacation because we don't have enough employees. And we're not able to adequately protect and serve. So there are times where it does take some pushing. And some, I don't know if the word is the right word, some strong arming. And for me to know that I haven't heard in the last several years, anybody saying we've got to have more deputies on the road. We have, our council does a great job. And I want to say this while we're at it. Chad Malacote pushed really hard recently to get our deputies a $3,000 raise. And I want to send a shout out to him. He pushed hard. He's not working for re-election, and he hung in there and fought that battle and was able to get that, for our guys. And I appreciate that. So we have some smart people up there. I just don't think they're being presented. I don't think they know what we really need. I don't think we're coming in there and spelling this out. I've been going to budget meetings recently, and I am shocked at the lack of preparedness on our part, on our administration's part, to adequately show the council what we need. There was a question in here about how are we going to spend our money, and I'm still dealing with council things, and would we change how we spend our money? We don't even know how we spend our money. How do we know if we're going to change? We don't know where it's going. I'm going to give you a couple examples that are shocking. One of the budget sessions that I was at, I've been reviewing the budgets. I've requested the budgets in the last several years and just going through them line item upon line item. And there is a line item for training. We need training. There should be a lot of training and a lot of training expense. I'm sure there needs to be more. It has zeros in it all the way through the last 3 years, zeros for training. So I ask, hey, why do we have zeros in the training fund? We obviously have to spend money for training. And the exact answer that I got and that the council got, because this is a council meeting, was we just usually take that out of vehicle maintenance fund. Now that's unbelievable. That is unbelievable. It's unacceptable. Another item. Why are we spending $18,000 for garbage removal? Well, garbage removal is only three or 4,000. We just use the other money for other things.
So they do transfers after the budget's passed, essentially.
Yeah, we need line items for these things. We don't have a grip on what we actually need because we don't know. So when we ask for, well, how much money was spent in training? Well, I don't know. We took it out of the automotive fund. And so we're not tracking adequately. We've got to get a hold of that first. Where are we actually spending money at? Then we can look at, what kind of changes that we need to make. So we're not presenting to the council our needs.
So did I hear a policy point that your intention is to advocate for the addition of 2 new merit deputies for Henry County?
That day one, maybe November the 9th. We have to have it. We have to have 2 more deputies. We've got to have 5-man shifts. We have 4-man shifts, and you've always got somebody gone for vacation or for some reason. So 3 is going to be about the best that you can count on. And if we had 5-man road shifts, we would be okay because more than likely the best you're going to have is 4. Our guys need vacation. Our guys need to be able to take their days off. You've got to step away from this job. This is a very intense, a very stressful job. We have got to focus on the health and well-being of our guys. And yes, advocating for 2, we've got to have two more road deputies immediately.
So Landon, in that conversation, you've been with the department for 25 years or so. Has the head count dropped in that time? So that this wouldn't be a new all-time max. It's dropped down.
Right. At least one I know of. And then if John would get his way and get the pace team guy back, that would get us back to what it was when I started. And that does need to happen. I agree with John. We need those people. And because we deal with people being injured, we deal with people training. We do a lot of training, which is a good thing. I'm an advocate for that. But when they're training, we have to cover their shifts and then either pay them for their training or give them a training payback day. I wish we could pay them for their training. So, yeah, John and I are on the same page on that.
We don't do paid for training.
If it's on their regular shift, they get paid, of course, but they have a choice of getting comp time or a training payback day, which creates another schedule problem because, on the Saturday and Sunday after training, anybody that's had training during the week, they're going to get a day off. I don't agree with that, but it would be nice if they were paid, but I also understand the budget constraints and everything else. Sense. And the comment about the training line item, I agree with John. But I also know in the very short time that I've been dealing with budgets is sometimes the government will create some kind of incentive and give you money, and to get that money, you have to create a line item on your budget. You have to do the ordinance and the special paperwork, and you do it, and then that fund fizzles out, and then 5 years from now you still got that line item, but that money's not coming in anymore, so it will say 0.
Well, it's a training. We have the government's not funding our training. That's just training, and so we.
But I'm a strong advocate of doing our local training, just like I want our guys to do our own crash investigations, and I don't know how you can sit and say, oh, we don't need a crash investigation team, that we can let the state police do that. And then say, well, but we do need our other specialties. And I'm a former SWAT team guy. I headed that. I was a SWAT team commander for several years. I would never want to do away with a SWAT team, but because I don't want to rely on the other agencies to come in and wait on them. But I also feel the same way if we have the guys that can get trained in the other specialties that I mentioned with the community policing and all that stuff, I think we should go forward with it.
So a little bit off topic here, but I think it's topical, or it should be in the conversation. The president of the United States today, apparently they floated the idea of doing 2 things with regard to federal drug legislation: pardoning federal prisoners for cannabis and descheduling marijuana. So what effect would that have to a county sheriff's department? And is there any change in your views on cannabis since you visited us in April, John?
No, so we have to enforce the laws. We don't make the laws, and I'm just going to stick with that. The lawmakers can pass whatever laws that they want to. I'm not going to get involved in that conversation of, well, man, if we did this, we could do. We're going to enforce the laws that we have, and any talk other than that is I think it's not. It's not beneficial at this point, because it doesn't matter what we think it will do. Right now, the laws are as they are, and until they change, I'm not going to spend time trying to figure out how that will affect us.
All right, Landon, same conversation.
Yeah, change is tough, and the older you get, the harder change is. And I know I talked on the show last time I was here about how I was changing, and in a forum, I was strictly, horribly against any type of marijuana being legal. And as I have evolved, and as my children have grown older, and especially my son have educated me on a few things, I have changed my mind. I wouldn't like it, but I wouldn't fight, and I wouldn't gripe about the legalization of marijuana in Indiana, because it's coming this way anyway. It's already been lessened in the amount of charges and that way. Now what you're saying today, to take people out of prison that's already there, I'm going to have to think about that one for a while. I'm not sure. And it would have to be, I would want to know how much and.
Well, this would be the president with federal, not your
federal
state
money.
Folks that are in federal prisons.
Yeah. I don't, man, if they're in federal prison for a reason and it was a large amount, I'd hate to see them just walk.
I think the administration said in their release that because it's so few that are actually in federal prison due to marijuana, it was going to be somewhere like around 1,000 people.
1,000 people countrywide?
Across the whole country.
Yeah. So, and I don't know what you're talking. I just taking your word for it. So, but it's coming.
Shockingly low amount of people.
And the marijuana, and I always talk about, when somebody asks about marijuana, I talk about the folks that have smoked marijuana their whole life. They've managed to do it without getting in wrecks. They've managed without, getting growing 300,000 pounds of marijuana in their backyard. They've managed to do it out of trouble, and those people aren't a problem. It's the people that go out and get high and drive a car. So if we have a way to measure it, we have a way to manage it, and as we do alcohol, I have come full circle about being lighter on the marijuana use. And, if there's 1,000 people being incarcerated across the country, and that's all that would affect.
But at the federal level, there's plenty more statewide.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's a reality that as a society we're catching up to. And I know my friends in the prosecutor's office and then the sheriff's department it's a professional issue, but we're surrounded, man. Like, the state of Michigan literally has billboards that as soon as you cross up on I-69, they are telling Hoosiers, here's where you go. When you go to Illinois, it's the same thing. You've got, we're putting up blinders to pretend that it's not an issue.
Well, I have a lot of empathy for people, and I've pulled over people on the interstate, and you can check my 25 years. I've taken a lot of people to jail for weed and other drugs, and I truly feel bad now. If I pull somebody over and they have some cookies or some gummies that are legal in Michigan and they've got them in Indiana, they're not legal here, but they bought them legally and they're just driving through Indiana. It's hard for me to arrest them. Call that weak, whatever you want, but it's hard for me to go ahead and arrest them when they bought it legally and they're going to somewhere else where it's legally and they're driving across the country.
I call them tourists. All right. So
I think one quote, I think the quote that I hear from this podcast the most out of 272 episodes was whenever we did the primary episode, and I asked this question, and you said, if I pull someone over and they have weed and they say it's Delta 8, I say, thank you for smoking Delta. And I hear people, like, all my friend group at least is like, that was hilarious. It's so good.
All right. So, Danny Morrill, this is the Morrill family is filling the chat, or they're the ones I'm reading today.
There's more in there.
Danny Morrill, there's tons of people watching, lots of chats, but I have to have Christmas dinner with these folks. So Danny wants to know, Landon, what are John's strengths? And then John, you're going to have to, I think Danny's been through counseling. And John,
is this marriage counseling?
John, you're going to have to tell Landon what his strengths are. Well, so what are the strengths?
I'll be glad to start. I'll point out something Landon. That I may get slapped by.
And I swear,
people.
if this is a backhanded compliment, Zach's turning off microphones, people.
Okay, that's fine. But I may get slapped by some people right now because this has been one of the most contentious, awful shares races I've ever seen starting in January. But I will take credit. I remember the day very well. John remembers the bad things. I remember the good things that I asked him to come to Caddis and be one of our deputy marshals. And then he was there. And then I asked him, I said, why don't you come to the county? I think you'll be happy. And he came to the county as a reserve. So his work ethic, his family values and his dedication to his family are just second to none. He would do anything for his family. I admire him for that. I admire what he when he worked for free. I admire the fact that he has a business that is, maybe this isn't right, $1 million business or more, that he wouldn't have to put a uniform on and put his life in risk and to have all that. I admire the fact that he does it when he wouldn't have to.
All right. John?
Well, it's easy for me to comment on this. I tell a lot of people, in fact, I told somebody yesterday that Landon does a great job in training other officers. Landon is very smart, and he's very a quick thinker. A lot of people aren't quick thinkers. They're like an old mule staring at a new gate. But Landon is very sharp, very knowledgeable in laws, and he has a passion for helping people who want to get into law enforcement. He has a passion for helping them get in a uniform and get to work to start to fulfill their dreams. So he does a great job with that. I know that he cares about the people that his reserves and the people that he teaches, and we believe it or not, we have positive things to say about each other. But it is campaign time, and we have to fend for ourselves here, and that does make it difficult. It's hard on friendships, and I hope that we can look beyond that. It's
one thing I thought about after our primary episode. We had so many guys in here, running for this position, and everyone had a lot of disagreements, but one person was going to come out on top. And I thought, I wondered if it would make it difficult to go back to work with that person after they won. You know what I mean? Like it would bruise. It's going to bruise the person that doesn't win. It's going to bruise their ego.
Well, if I don't mind to speak about that, and again, the truth's the truth. I've lost some elections, and not for sheriff, but I've lost a couple corner races. I lost a town council race, and I can go back and work for that person without feeling bruised. And I felt that way with John. And even after the primary, we had a short conversation about we didn't want to get nasty and everything. And just to be 100% honest, I was still feeling that way. And then the video you had the other day was absolutely awful and just made me look terrible. So I would feel bruised. And I've told people I'm not going to retire. I want to stay till I'm 65 or 68. I don't care who the sheriff is, and that I could work for anybody. But, that video was bruising, and I would hope I would never make John feel that way. I would never want him to feel like I felt after I listened to that video. And I would want John to know that if I win on November 9th, there would be no difference in my opinion that I stated a while ago. But I am a little bruised over that, and I hope there's no more of that in this campaign because I just didn't think it was necessary. And
can you tell me exactly what you were bruised about?
The what?
Can you tell me exactly what you were bruised about?
You said that I was the last, the lone standing good old boy, and that I something about criminal activity, and that every sheriff had covered my criminal activity, and I just didn't appreciate that because there is nothing to cover, and I don't feel like I'm a good old boy system. It took me almost 20 years to get promoted to sergeant because I didn't fit in any narrative to be a good old boy. And I don't even know what a good old boy is. I see some positive things about good old boys because I do things the old way, but I was just disturbed that I was the last good old boy standing, and I didn't know who the ones that weren't standing, and I didn't know what I did to earn that. So, but that's my negative thing about it. But to answer your question honestly.
Yeah, well, I've talked a lot about the good old boy system. And when you tell me that you have no idea what I'm talking about, I'm surprised that you would venture into saying that. I've obviously been around. I was around before you got here on the reserves. Very familiar with the department and have been throughout the years. And let me explain to you what I mean about the good old boy system. When I say the good old boy system, I'm talking about a group, in our case, a group of guys who have worked together for many years, who have covered for each other. And I mean that when I said they've covered, I mean that very seriously. And I'm going to be very, very discreet. I'm not going to throw specifics here, but a group of people who have covered for each other for many years. So what happens is you cannot call something out because everybody's got dirt on everybody. And I've got news for you. When I talk about the good old boys, it's the good old boys that everybody's got dirt on everybody. And when I say that our department has covered for you, you know exactly what I mean. And you are compromised and indebted to the good. You're indebted for your career to the good old boys. And so when there was a question in here of who do you why do you think you are the right leader? Here's the situation. You cannot, the meaning for compromised is to be made vulnerable by exposure or possible revelation. That's what the dictionary meaning is. And when someone is compromised, when someone knows something on another person, you have this in big government like crazy. Everybody's compromised. So you can't get anywhere. And so the good old boys, you see them just keep hanging around. They keep hanging around on county payrolls because they help the next guy get in, and they say, hey, I want that job coming up. You can help me get it. And what's that guy going to do? He's going to get it for him because he said, hey, you better get it for me because you know what we've done for you. And here's the bottom line. The bottom line is you were involved in one of the biggest cover-ups I think this county's ever had. And you are totally compromised, and you totally owe your career to even be here to other good old boys. And I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to be discreet and leave it there. You know what I'm talking about. You're compromised. I don't owe these guys anything. The good old boys haven't helped me. You talked about being tough going back to work. You think the sheriff called me and said, hey, John, you're a Republican, I'm a Republican, I want to say congratulations on winning the primary? Never. In fact, he's boldly proclaimed, I'll never tell that kid congratulations. He shouldn't even be up here. And so this is, the good old boys are not happy with me. So I'll tell you this, I don't owe them anything. So I can take care of business without being worried that so-and-so is going to expose something on me if I don't get him this next job. So this is a very serious issue. In fact, it's the most serious issue of this campaign.
So we've got a little bit more than 30 days for these guys to make their case to the voters. I think we will probably get to the point here where we'll go through final thoughts, and Landon and John will both each get a chance to talk, cover anything they forgot, kind of a closing conversation from the Boss Hog side. I encourage everybody that's watching and listening to follow their campaigns on Facebook, reach out to them. I know both of these guys are available, and if they haven't made it to your doorstep yet, I bet them or folks from their campaign are probably going to get to you. Landon, tell us how people follow you. Anything we left out or you want to cover, the floor is yours, man.
I certainly have a Facebook page. I also, that phone number that John was talking about is out there everywhere, so people are welcome to call me. I just strongly disagree with everything that John said. I respect him, and I don't feel like I'm compromised, and I certainly don't promise anybody anything. I think I have the reputation just the exact opposite, that when I arrive on the scene, there may be some police officers that may be saying, "Oh, be careful, Landon's here." I'm okay with that reputation. Just that being said, I want to be your next sheriff. I think I would do a good job. I would be dedicated. I would work hard for every single person. You can't find any video or anything where I've said a certain sector of people in this county are inferior. I would treat everybody the same. I think the reason that I would make a better choice than John are several things, but he has a lot of assumptions. He has little bits of knowledge, and he assumes things, and then he repeats them as the truth. Think about not just me. I've been tore across social media for several years. The court of public opinion I've definitely been in, and
you've been in the public eye too long to.
And I've had to deal with a lot of things, and a lot of those people think that something's a certain way, and then they make those assumptions. But forget about me for a minute and think about a sheriff that would make those assumptions about you. He gets a little bit of information, doesn't know anything about a situation, and he makes an assumption that you belong to certain people. It's just like one of his videos. He said, "I voted for Joe Biden." Well, when I voted, I don't remember John looking over my shoulder. So assuming that because I'm a Democrat, that I would vote for Joe Biden, really, it's none of his business. But those assumptions are dangerous. And being around and seeing people rise and fall for the last 25 years, having the compassion that I have for folks, I wouldn't let that happen to anybody else. And it's just law enforcement maturity. And I don't agree with that good old boy thing. I don't agree with anything he said about anybody being compromised. And I don't ever remember anybody covering for anything. I always felt like if I did anything, I'd be the first one to go. So, but I do appreciate John's honesty, and I'd like to appreciate the vote. I would treat John well. I'd treat every one of the deputies well. I'd work well with the county. I've had that experience. I just think about folks' idea that, like John's business, his business has been around for 20-some years. You take the farming business that's been in the family for 100 years. Somebody green come out and work with you for 3 or 4 years, and then all of a sudden they decide that they can run that company and they can do it as well as you. I don't agree with that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's a certain individual that can. But I know that I would work hard for the citizens and communicate well. And I'd love to be your next sheriff. So and the main thing is I want to remain respectful, and I want to treat everybody in the county, not just my opponent or the employees, but I want to be respectful to everybody. I've learned that over the years. A couple people on the internet said, "Yeah, he's a smart aleck, he's this or that." I remember a time when I was a smart aleck with people, and I remember a time when several times that I did make mistakes and maybe say the wrong thing and say a little too strong of things. But that's what maturity in law enforcement. I'm not talking about maturity as a person, but maturity in law enforcement has given me that I can respect folks even when I'm not like them or agree with them.
Listen, man, we've been putting videos on Facebook every week for 6 years. We know a lot about people coming after us on Facebook.
We've gotten some calluses. All right, John. Final thoughts here.
Well, you want to talk about honesty, and you want to sit here and say, "No, your phone number's not blocked." It's dishonest. You want to sit here and say that you have no idea what I'm talking about, and if you want to keep playing that game, I can be very specific about what I'm talking about if you want me to. If
Are you
really
threatening
don't know,
me?
No. I'm just, you're saying you don't know.
I appreciate your honesty.
Okay,
I appreciate that.
Yeah, so let me, here's the bottom line, Landon. When I talk about you being compromised, you got arrested when you were a deputy sheriff, a Henry County deputy.
That is a lie. I have never been arrested,
Okay.
John. And see, that's what you do. You're taking stuff off the internet.
Yep.
And that's a complete lie.
Hold up, I got news for you. I know the officer that arrested you, okay?
I have never been arrested. Not one time.
Well, I'll tell you what. I just talked to one of your former bosses. Obviously, there's one who went and picked you up that knows a lot more about the situation.
I was never arrested. There was no need to be picked up. You're just listening to rumors. And is this what we want a sheriff to do? Listen to rumors. And now he's playing the Washington game. He wants to smear me in any way he can. He's reviving a character assassination from 2 years ago.
Well, let me talk for a second, and then you're welcome to talk. Like I said, I don't owe anybody up here anything, all right? I'm not depending on any good old boys. I know the officer that arrested you. I know exactly what happened. I know. Hold up a second. You don't have to shake your head. I went and talked to the sheriff that hired you. Landon, here's the bottom line. There comes a time where you've got to face reality. Okay? You were arrested. It was covered up. I will not go into detail what you were arrested for, nor about you resisting arrest. But I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to tell you this. There comes a time for reality to hit, and I know that reality is the leading cause of stress, but tonight's the night.
Well, I guarantee you're wrong. You're listening to rumors. I've never been arrested. Nobody had to come and get me. You're wrong. You want to? I mean, I can bring up stuff where things covered up in your life. Do you want me to do that? Do you want me to do that, John? I mean, that's what you're doing. You want a cover up? I've got a report right here you might want to read.
All right. I don't want to go any further in the.
Well, I've been smeared. Now, see, the problem is there's going to be a lot of people believe what he said. There was a lot of people believe that 2 years ago. I have never been arrested. I swear under God I've never been arrested. Wow. I certainly never resisted anybody.
And you want to lead a county of people with that kind of dishonesty, Landon. It's terrible.
All right,
you're assuming things.
Let me ask the question this way. John, have you ever been convicted of a crime?
Negative.
Okay. Landon, have you been convicted of a crime?
Never been convicted or arrested of anything.
Have you been prosecuted for a crime?
Never been prosecuted for a crime.
John, have you been prosecuted for a crime?
No, I haven't, and I've never been arrested and had somebody come pick me up and take care of it. And here's the bottom line. It happened. Landon.
All right, I'm not going to decide it. Dakota's not going to decide it. We're having an election.
It's already been decided.
But the vote is going to be taken by the people of Henry County in 30 days, right? So people can recognize the conversation we've had. They're going to be the judge, and we're going to go from there. Any final thoughts from you, Dakota?
I have nothing. Thank you both for coming. I know that it takes a lot to put your name on the ballot. I've never done it myself, but I have a lot of really close friends that have ran campaigns. I know it takes a lot out of you. It takes, to just put your name on there. It's difficult, and voters they deserve a choice in every race. So.
Yeah. As a guy that's run for office 3 times myself, I thank you both for being a part of the process, giving us choices. I don't know what Henry County's going to do, but I'm looking forward to the continued conversation. And each of these guys is going to have a case to make to the voters of Henry County between now and the first Tuesday in November. Once again, another thank you to the presenting sponsors of the Boss Hog of Liberty Candidate Series, Weiland's Flowers, Big Bounce, and the Slick Pickle. We will see you guys next week. I think we're going to talk to some county council folks, and we're going to ask them if maybe we can get some more sheriff's deputies for the Henry County Sheriff's Department.
If it's in the budget.
We'll talk next week.
Thank you.